Well, we are entering May and want to bring you the latest data here in the Austin metro area. Wow, we have got lots of homes for sale, homes for sale, homes for sale. Anybody want a home for sale? We've got them. It's about inventory right now. So this is in real time what we're looking at in the market as we get to the end of April. We're sitting around 13,000, almost 800 homes for sale. If I go back to last year at in July, which is when we peaked out in 2024, we had 13,721. So we are already over last year's numbers. Were in April. I expect we'll continue to see those build again through maybe July of this summer. So how did we get here and what do we expect for the next several months? So let's look back at some March data. Let me start here. This is the Austin metro area, and this data is through March, thanks to Texas National Title. So we are the green line. This is number of sales. How many buyers are writing contracts and closing in March? We were under the last 2 years and way below the pandemic. So we were selling almost, maybe 800, 900 homes fewer than we sold in the peak of the pandemic and several hundred lower than we saw the past 2 years. Sales volume is the dollar amount, again, lower, but fairly neck and neck with the last 2 years. Median sales price, pretty neck and neck with last year. I mean, within $2,000. So median sales price is just kind of the same as we saw last year. Average sales price higher because, in my opinion, and you've heard me in the last several weeks, I think we're seeing that kind of upper middle class and also the baby boomers. They're the ones with the money moving the market. They're probably buying an above median home price property. But here is the real story: inventory. So if you look at these lines, down here was the pandemic when we had nothing for sale because there was lots of buying activity and not as many sellers. But we had, lots of buying activity and just suppressed that active inventory down to just under a month. Everything could sell fairly quickly. Then, of course, we got high interest rates. The blue line is 2023. And then the orange line is 2024. But look at 2025. We just continue to get more and more and more homes for sale on the market. And the main reason is because the actual buyer activity hasn't really increased much over the last few years, if at all. We're still pretty stagnant on how many buyers per month are buying properties. That's staying about the same. And what it's allowing is there's just more sellers than buyers. This is also months of inventory across the entire MSA. And again, this is back in March, 4.5. We're now pushing almost 6. I'll show that to you here in a minute. Let's look at Williamson County real quick. A lot of these will be similar stories, but Williamson County, Round Rock, Georgetown, Leander, all those markets, again, sales lower. If we look at sales volume, fairly neck and neck with a couple years ago. Median sales price, a tad bit lower, but hanging in with last year. If we look at, sorry about that, too many moving charts. If we look at the average sales price, again, kind of in between the last 2 years, but mostly that's because of sales volume. If we look at total listings, though, wow, way up. Look at the last 2 years. We're about 2,300. Now we're probably 3,200. So we're almost 900, 1,000 homes more now than we had for sale at this time the past few years. And again, months of inventory looks like the same story, just way above what we've seen before. This is Travis County, which is mostly Austin proper and the suburbs east and west. Again, number of home sales lower. Sales volume neck and neck. Median sales price higher. And again, same story. I think we're seeing the above median price buyer. Those are the ones that are buying right now. Here's the average sales price, much higher. And again, that has to do with just dollar volume. So maybe luxury, upper middle class is moving a little better. Total listings, though, building, and months of inventory building. So each year you can see a sizable gap between each year in terms of months of inventory, just building it up. Finally, we're going to look at Hays County. Now, number of home sales up. Hays County, booming. They have a lot of new construction and affordable new construction. If we look at sales volume, not bad, above the last couple years. Median sales price, kind of in the middle of the last 2 years. Average sales price, a little higher. Again, they're starting to get that dollar volume coming in. Total listings, they're not as aggressively going up. And I think that, again, has to do with the new construction down there. and the affordability. And months of inventory looks like it might go back in line with last year. Still a lot of homes for sale, but starting to get in line. This is another chart or another tool that I use, Agent Intel. So if you look at the entire Austin metro, when you see that line start to tilt towards the blue, that tells you you're just getting more and more and more homes for sale. They're calling us a balanced market, but I would say in many locations, once you already get above 6 months of inventory, which has to do with pace of sales, you're in a buyer's market. Buyers are going to have an advantage. They're going to have more to look at, not as much competition. If I look back at these two, or look down at these two charts and look at supply, I'm going to hover over March. So if you can see these numbers here, if you look at this year in March, we were already sitting at around 11,600 homes for sale. Last year was about 9,700, the year before 8,600. The pandemic got down to nothing. But even if I go all the way back to 2016, we were about 9,900 homes for sale for the metro. Now we're significantly over that, and we have more people than we did back in 2016. But if I look, let me move myself over here. I'm going to hover over demand for March as well. This doesn't show you as big of a story. If you look at 2025, we sold in March about 3,000 homes. Last year, about 3,000 homes. 2023, 2,880. Even in the peak of the pandemic, we sold about 39, almost 4,000 homes. But that gap's about 1,000 homes between the craziest market to a really slow market. We're seeing about 1,000. But in terms of supply, we're seeing 10x over what we saw in the pandemic. So supply is just far outpacing demand at the moment. Here's one of the main reasons why. Let's look at this appreciation chart down here. So this is over the last 10 years. So this is pre-pandemic, and we were appreciating, 7%, 5%, 3%, 2%, kind of nice, steady growth. You get to the pandemic, here's 31.5%. Here's 11% in 2 years. That's almost 50%. And that doesn't even include the 9% that we got in 2020, which also was going nuts. Well, what's happened is that's just people can't keep up with that. So we've been giving it back. We went down 10% in 2023, 2% last year, about 2% so far this year. So we're softening. We're maybe starting to stabilize. But if I look at the median home value, right now we're sitting around 433,000. If I go back to 2020, that was 344,000. If I go back to 2019, it was 314. I can go back to 2017. We were under 300,000 less than a decade ago. And now we're 433. So the buyers are saying, hey, I could have afforded it back then with lower interest rates too, and lower property tax and lower insurance. But man, it's like a quadruple whammy when you throw all that at once, and then the market's just having to adjust to that. So this article was on Inman this week. Basically, this is national. This isn't just happening in Austin. This is now starting to happen everywhere. I think Austin was kind of a leading indicator, but now we're seeing the markets slow down nationally. Home sales dropped in February and March year over year. Some more markets are starting to see deeper declines than we're seeing, which tells me maybe we're getting closer to stabilization, but now some of the other big markets that hadn't turned yet are starting to turn. But this is economic sales slowing pretty significantly nationally. So this is the 1 year change in the population, in the home prices between March of this year and March of last year. If it is a more tan or red color, that's negative. If it's a blue color, that's more positive. So the growing markets, it's all in the Northeast. They're not building as many homes. You have older inventory. And so people are just competing over the same things up in those markets. And also, I think maybe you've had some movement to those markets just for affordability reasons, not necessarily for jobs. But we're seeing those markets grow. If we look at Texas, we're still seeing negatives. Austin, San Antonio, Dallas, Houston, they're all seeing a little bit negative. Austin right now is looking at 4.6% year over year on this chart. Phoenix is down. But really look at Southwest Florida, and you think of all the hurricanes they've had and the insurance issues they've had. I mean, some of those markets are down almost 10%. Punta Gorda, Florida, Cape Coral, Fort Myers, Miami's getting hit right now. So Florida is starting to finally really feel it with all those costs that have built up. Well, where are we on mortgage rates right now? So it's been a volatile story, but we're back under 7%, sitting around 6.85. I think if you're a quality, high credit score, primary home buyer, you're probably getting below that. So that's been good. If I zoom down here and show you what's been going on in April. This is just April of this year. We started the month. If you went back several months, it was just gradually coming down out of the holidays. We got down right before the tariff announcements to about 6.6, and it felt like, hey, we might even see a lower rate. And then, of course, everything rocketed up over 7% in less than a week, and it kind of shocked the market. Maybe one of the many reasons that we're seeing home sales not pick up. You get that uncertainty, you get higher mortgage rates. It's going to be a break on buyers. But then we've seen it slowly start to come down again. We'll see if that trend sticks. But really, headline shock, I think, is really making a lot of buyers hit the pause button. Having said that, we're seeing in April buyers buying. I've got 6 buyers under contract. We're moving product. So there are things moving. But there's just not enough to keep up with the large amount of supply. This is a cool story. So Austin has been building downtown towers like crazy for 20 plus years, but we're about to have a new tallest building in town. It's called Waterline. It's on 6th and Guadalupe. It's the one closest to I-35. If you're looking at the skyline and you're wondering which one is Waterline, it's the one that looks unfinished, has a big crane on top, and it's going to be, I think, over 66, sorry, it's going to go up to 74 stories. So anyways, here's kind of what Waterline will look like once complete. And again, in this image right here, I-35 would be to the right and the bulk of downtown would be over here on the left. Pretty impressive. And because it's not kind of in the middle of downtown, it's kind of off to the right. It really kind of stands out as you look at the skyline. All right, so if you are a seller right now, the good news is these are the warmer months. This is when buyers are typically out, and we do have buyers. There are buyers in the market. Like I said, we're seeing about 3,000 sales a month. The challenge we have is inventory, because while there's 3,000 selling a month, there's 13,000 now building towards 14,000 homes for sale. So at that pace, if no new listings come on the market, we're approaching 6 months to get all that stuff sold. So we've got to make sure the house is in great shape. We've got to be priced, maybe even ahead of the market so that buyers are expecting you to be there. That can lead to a quicker and more successful sale. If you're a buyer right now, hey, for those that say I can't find something to buy, you've never had a better opportunity to find something to buy in the marketplace. And on top of that, there are ways to negotiate to get credits if you want to get your interest rate down, or you want help with your closing costs, or you need a certain repair done. Now's the time to ask for those concessions. Anyways, hope this was helpful. If you want to follow our videos each and every week, make sure to click the subscribe button on our YouTube channel at Ryan Kelly Group. You can follow us there. And of course, if you know somebody looking to buy, sell, invest, or finance here in Austin, would love the opportunity to chat with them. Anyways, I can't believe summer is almost here. My kids are less than a month away from getting out of school. That's kind of wild to think about, but hope you enjoy your week, and we'll talk to you next Monday. Thanks.